Good morning, everyone. I'm Shera.
I'm Bill Nealon.
And you're tuning into
A Daily Dose of Vitamin Bill.
It is Sunday, April 30th, and what a beautiful Sunday it is. I hope you guys are out enjoying the fun and the sun and all the things that Florida has to offer.
Well, Shera, I can't believe it's been over a year since our book launch.
Yeah, today's the 30th. Oh, our book launch was on the 3rd of April. Yes, it's been a year. Wow, this time flies.
Yes, it does. And boy, what a day, a memorable day that was. I was hoping maybe 10 or 15 of my friends might show up.
We had over 70 people at our book launch.
Just amazing. Well, that's due to you and all your media skills and promotion, and you just made it such an event people wouldn't miss it. Between the balloons and the lanterns and the food and the general setup, it was quite an event.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how we thought we would only have 15 people there. We were pretty popular though.
For those of you who don't know, Shera and I met over 2 years ago on a flight to Reno. We were supporting a friend who was competing out there. And in our discussions, we discovered we each had a mutual love for writing. And that led to hangouts when we got back to Florida from Reno. And we really enjoyed one another's company. And we had this mutual love for writing, and I discovered Shera was a journalism major in college and a very, very talented writer, guys, let me tell you. And I had always kind of, entertained the thought of possibly writing a book, and I said, if ever I was going to find someone. Well, I asked Shera to be my editor, and that has led us to this incredible journey that we're still on.
Yes. In a year, we've published 2 books. We published My Journey with the Iron and Your Journey Weight Training Log. We have an audiobook, we have the Kindle version, and that's all available on Amazon.com. We also developed a Tall Tales from a Short Memory, and that's just 2 to 3 minute audio vignettes of Bill's life and experiences and, throughout his career, and it's hilarious, so you guys gotta check them out. But we also have a website, www.billnealon.com, where you can find out more information about me, more information about Bill. You can purchase merchandise, and you can view the tabs, which one of my favorite tabs is the Billism. And for those of you who know Bill, you know what a Billism is. But for those that don't, Bill, what's a Billism?
Well, I developed these inspirational quotes for myself when I was competing, and it gave me the confidence and surety that when I got on stage, I knew I'd be the threat.
One of my favorite Billism is definition never goes out of style. As a matter of fact, here on our Hall of Champions wall is a new one.
Yes, when Shera built the studio, we knew we needed something new and relevant, so we came up with, it is not just to follow in the footsteps of those who went before us, but to go beyond and make footprints of our own.
Yes, and that we did. That may be my favorite one. But there's so many more on the website. You guys are going to get lost on trying to figure out which ones are your favorites. So definitely go to the website and check that out. And in a year, we've done so much. We were in the Palm Beach Post.
Well, another big part of our year was we were a very viable presence at all the major bodybuilding shows in South Florida. And want to give a shout out to the promoters who were so kind and generous to us.
Yes.
They gave us great placings for our booth. Shera did, as with the book launch, a magnificent job on the booths. I would say, without reservation, we were the most popular booths at any of the shows. We had more fans, spectators, and competitors come up, and we introduced ourselves. They bought the books, merchandise. It was really something. And we want to thank you all for your support.
Yes, and speaking of competitions, we will be at the Triumph in Boca Raton on May 20th. That's Rich Alvarez and Maria Belando's show. You guys definitely do not want to miss that. They put on an amazing show. So come see us. We'll be there.
That's right. We're looking forward to seeing you.
I think after the show, we need to get some dinner or watch a movie or something.
Like we usually do.
Well,
if you remember, we celebrated the 1-year book launch anniversary by going to see John Wick.
Oh, yes, we did. We wanted to do something mellow because we're so busy all the time that we wanted to just relax. And I called AMC and I said, well, hey, Bill Nealon's coming to the theater. And they shut it down. I'm just kidding. But spoiler alert, that movie is 3 hours long. So be prepared to sit for a little while. Really good movie though.
Real mellow. John Wick, very mellow. I think I lost the count of dead bodies during the 3 hours.
And you know what? I really want to know what his diet is, because, for a person who's been thrown off buildings and off trucks and vehicles, and they just get right back up, that's amazing. Bottle and sell it. I'd buy it.
Well, Shera, I've been around you. You're pretty indestructible. And I have to say, that hat you've got on today, what a hat. That really polishes off the outfit.
Well, thank you.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Shera is a style trendsetter. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
She has outfits to die for. And she's really got one on today. You can see it, guys. That's her. And it reminds me, you had a couple of really cool hats when we were in DC.
Oh yeah, yes. We went to DC for February 8th through the 13th, I think. And we went because both books that we've published are in the Library of Congress. We're standing in front of the Library of Congress. Can you see it in the background? Super cool. Now we're gonna go in and we're gonna take a look around and see if we can find our book.
It's called My Journey with the Iron.
Wonderful, wonderful achievement we have in the Library of Congress. Sometime last year, I went to a wedding and I decided I was going to stay a little bit longer in DC and kind of just see the museums and check everything out. And I went to the Library of Congress. Beautiful place, by the way. They have these wonderful hand painted murals on the ceilings and on the walls, and it's really bright. And I walked in and I just knew I wanted to have our book in this library. So I asked the librarian, and she said that it's a lengthy process, but they are kind of choosy on what books they select to be in the library. So tell them the name and they'd look it up, and we'd hear from them. And if we don't, well, you know what that means. So months later, Bill is dangling a letter from the Library of Congress.
Let's see what's inside from the Library of Congress.
What's it say?
Oh, okay. It says, Dear Ms. Sharika Shem, on behalf of the Library of Congress, we want to thank you and acknowledge the generous donation of your publications listed below. We are happy to inform you that the publications were selected for addition to the library's general collection and assigned Library of Congress control numbers. Oh my gosh, Bill, we're at the Library of Congress.
I believe we've been selected.
What an honor. Little old Shera and me, our book is in the Library of Congress with all these great literary works. And guys, we're just so humbled. It was such an achievement. I guess due to the historical content and the instructional content, they selected our books.
Years and years after we're gone, our names are still going to be in the Library of Congress. I guess we're making some sort of legacy, right?
Yes, wow.
It's a little bit of a difference when you're a tourist and you're just browsing the library. But when you go there and you have your control number and you know where your book is, the librarians, they perk up a little bit more, and they kind of want to make sure you find your book.
Mm-hmm. Well, as magnificent as the main building is, with its murals and decor, it's huge. There are two more. There's the Jefferson Building and the Adams Building.
Yes, and our book is housed in the Adams Building. So we had quite an adventure. We took a tunnel from the main library to the Adams Library, and then from there you take the elevator from the first floor to the fifth. You've got to walk through TSA-like security. And by the way, every museum has TSA-like security. So you're taking your belt off and your jacket or whatever you're wearing at every place you go. And that's a good thing. Once you go through the security, we get to the other librarian and we ask her for the books, and she shows us right to the shelf, and you can pluck that book right off the shelf.
Yes, it was surreal to actually be there and see our book among all these other literary works. Just amazing. So I knew Shera last year had got her card, so I had to get a library card. Library
Yes.
of Congress.
I was not going to let you leave DC without getting a library card. I mean, we probably might not ever use it again, but at least we have it for memorabilia. We were on such a high from seeing our book in the Library of Congress, we didn't want to go home. So right across the street is the U.S. Capitol. Now, when you guys do the U.S. Capitol, you got to do the tour. You got to do the guided tour. There's so much information. 45-minute long tour, nothing too long.
And they're very well versed and they really know their stuff. We saw so much historical stuff from statues. We learned so much about George Washington and the Dred Scott decision.
Yes, Rosa
Wow.
Parks.
Yes.
And it's a really good, interesting fact was the president, he cannot come to the Capitol unless he's invited. I thought that was funny. You're the president. I thought you can go anywhere you want to go. Nope, not the Capitol. You've got to be invited.
But our tour got interrupted, didn't it?
Yeah, oh yes it did. Speaking of interruptions, with my hat. So that day it was really cold. I think it was about 39 degrees that day. And I wore a black Cossack hat. And we're on the tour and Nancy Pelosi just comes waltzing by and it just stops everything. She has cameras following her. I think she was doing a show and she turns around and our eyes meet. Our eyes connect. And she's just staring at my hat. I think I'm going to frame that hat.
Well, fortunately, we got a photo of that. Again, everything stopped. She walked in, even the tour guide said, well, I might as well stop talking. And everybody's staring at Nancy Pelosi, and she turns and stares at Shera and Shera's cap. And everybody stared at Shera.
Yeah. Don't forget to do the Congress. When Congress is in session, you can go in and see them. However, I thought was a little weird is if you're a citizen, United States citizen, you have to leave the library, leave the Capitol, go across the street to find your state representative and get a pass. And then you got to come back to the Capitol in order to see the Congress in session. Now, if you're an international traveler, you can just go on in. And I thought that was a little weird.
Yeah, seeing that we pay taxes and they don't, and we can't go in.
Well, just get your pass before you go. That way you don't have to go through the hassle of going across the street and doing all that just to see Congress in session. But it is a beautiful building. And one of the highlights for me was, of course, the cafeteria. I thought they had the cutest little Capitol muffins in the shape of a Capitol.
Yes, and the food was very good. And it's very large. It's built to house a lot of people. And we noticed as we were finishing our lunch and leaving, several large groups of, looked like students and other groups came in. So there are tours that are going year round at the Capitol.
I highly recommend doing the tours. Don't just waltz around and try to figure out what's what. Go on the tours. Only pick certain cafeterias to go to. The best one we went to was the Capitol. But guys, if you're looking for restaurants in that DC area where the museums are, you're not gonna find any. You're gonna find a bunch of street food, and if that's okay if you like street food, But I couldn't do the street food too long. One day, and I'd had enough.
Yes, and we made that mistake of just for convenience and not missing any of the tours. That first day, we ate on a couple of occasions the street vendor food, the vans that they had. And boy, guys, just take a tip from us. It didn't agree with us later on. And I guess it was the second or third day we woke up, both of us in kind of a foul mood, and our energy levels were low. We had trouble concentrating. And we came to the realization that, bad food can have a profound effect on how you feel and even your mood for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a good lunch and felt a whole lot better.
There's some really good spots in DC. So you have the marketplace. That's a big kind of building where they have different selections of different kinds of food. So you may have Egyptian, you may have Spanish, different types. And then there is the Wharf. We actually love the Wharf. It's a array of really nice restaurants. There's Ben and Jerry's. We had ice cream. You can walk your dog.
Yeah, it's right on the water, and just up from that is the Museum of the Bible.
You must do the Museum of the Bible, and it's one of those things where you kind of miss it because it's at the end of the National Mall. And by the way, I thought the National Mall was a mall where you can shop and buy things, but no, it's actually the combination of all the museums. Yeah, and I don't go to DC thinking the National Mall is a shopping center.
For any of us, the Bible is a part of our lives, whether you're religious or spiritual or not.
Okay.
It is a part of the human experience. And we went in there and we were fascinated to find there were many versions of the Bible.
There's a slave Bible, and that's on display. And they opened up to a page where on display it says basically the reason for slavery is because Noah cursed Ham. And so, yeah, that's the reason. Mm-hmm.
Gee, I would think a lot of people cursed a lot of people back then. Wouldn't you? I mean, I'm sure Job cursed Jebediah. And did that whole change, did that cause racism? I don't know. I don't think so.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You have to go see the different types of Bibles because there's even a comic book version, the Genesis by R. Crumb, dated in 2009. There's Bibles that have color. There's the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's huge scrolls. Just an array of just different types of Bibles. And if you don't go to that museum, you won't really know that.
That's true. And we found, too, that these different versions of the Bible were, first of all, they were all brought over from Europe to the United States. And the Puritans, who were some of the first settlers here, really applied it to their mores and their morals, and they dispensed that to the other people. But it was a very one-sided interpretation, let's say, and you find throughout history, as you're looking at these different versions, that the leaders of the day took spiritual quotes to use them for their economic, social, and business purposes. So the Bible got manipulated in many different ways. As we said, even there was a Bible for slave owners and slaves to think it's actually acceptable to have slaves.
Kind of a joke Bill and I played on the tour guide of the Museum of the Bible. When you get to that Dead Sea Scroll floor, there's a pole and it has a TV on it, and it looks like there's a room in there. So someone kind of pops in and says hello, and I say hello, and there's a human who is a virtual tour guide, and I found it very interesting that we are in the Bible, that Museum of the Bible, and they didn't have the Book of Kells. And I actually learned about the Book of Kells from Bill.
The Book of Kells is known as the oldest book in the world. It's housed in Trinity College in Dublin. Mm-hmm. And I saw it myself when I was visiting Dublin. And interestingly, it's all pictures because being so old, it was done at the time where there were no alphabet, there were no letters, no one was reading then. So it's all done in picture form, and it's all in glass, and really, you can't touch it. It's really magnificent to see this thing laid out on the first floor of Trinity College in the museum they have there. But it is known universally all over the world as the oldest book in the world, and it is a book of the Bible in picture form.
She had no idea what it was, and I thought it was very interesting that you are the tour guide for the Museum of the Bible, and you don't know what that is. You would think all the Bibles would be right in that museum, but no. And I know she'll remember us because we stumped her that day. And as we were walking away, she's asking us how to spell it so she can Google it. So that was interesting.
They'll remember us.
Yes. As you got to do the Hebrew Old Testament exhibit. That's beautiful. It's an interactive walkthrough. So it's great for kids. I mean, great for adults as well. But it's a beautiful walkthrough of the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament.
Yes, from Adam and Eve all the way up through. And I'm sure a lot of us are, I know I am, kind of fuzzy of the real chronological order. Mm-hmm. But in a very simple, entertaining way, it shows you the path of history from Adam and Eve all the way through the Old Testament.
That's a must-do when you go to the Museum of the Bible. All of the museums, except for, I think the Museum of the Bible, is free admission. Museum of the Bible charges $20 for adults to get in. I think about 10 for kids. But it's a really nice place for you to visit, and a really eye-opening place, especially if you read the Bible and you want to know about the different versions, especially the ones from 1600s and 1400s. They have all of them on display.
When we came out of the Hebrew exhibit, which was the last major thing we saw, we looked across and there was a Holocaust museum. And coming from the Hebrew perspective, it just seemed like the logical next step for us.
It's the Holocaust Museum. That was an actually dreary, rainy day. And walking into that museum, it's an experience, a real experience. I read about the Holocaust, but to go to the museum and experience it, it's a different feeling. So when you walk through the security, you have to pick up a card. Bill and I picked up a card, and on the card is a person who's either lost their life or who's still alive, and you're going to walk through that Holocaust Museum through the experience as that person on the card. And you take these elevators, and they take you up to, I guess, the second floor, and you begin the experience, which is really, really, really sad. Prepare yourself for a somber type of day.
Yes, it's our history, and tough to stomach at times. The documentation and the footage is simply amazing how they got it all preserved from so many years ago, almost 100 years ago, 80 years ago, but it's all there. We didn't see a lot of picture taking. You don't hear a lot of conversation. You don't hear any laughter. It's a very deep, moving, tragic walk through history. And prepare yourselves, because it's very emotional. And to see, it's not just, writing. There is a lot of documentation, a lot to read in there about what actually occurred in this systematic persecution of the Jewish race, people, and what Hitler did. But extermination wasn't the goal in the beginning. Hitler simply wanted to get rid of the Jews, saw them as a problem, and he tried to, effectively he did, because he was such a charismatic speaker, get these other countries to believe his propaganda. And no one wanted the Jews. They were not welcome in Hungary, they were not welcome in Romania, and all the adjacent countries, and Hitler just wanted them gone.
I read that he said that he will put the Jews on luxury ships and planes just to get them out of Germany. And anyone who can take them, but he will put them on luxury just to get them out. And to hear his voice saying these things, it's just deplorable. It's just very sad, very sad. And throughout the museum, there are these areas you can sit, just spaces where you can sit, because I think that is for reflection. At some points, you do have to sit down, because the videos, the footage, the photos, they are a lot.
Very tough to tolerate, because this is real. This isn't a cautionary tale or a movie or a docudrama. This is real history. You see real lives being taken right on the film. You see the swastika. You see German, even just what the German uniform evokes. It evokes terror and just elimination at the lowest basis level. And what they did, we saw how they used Jews for experimentation, how they lined them up in ditches, how they made them run, or just to terrorize them. They would line them up in a line and indiscriminately just shoot one in the back of the head. Yes. And you just, again, as Shera said, you have to sit down and try to calm down and process this man's inhumanity to man. It is tragic, it is dark, it is so sad, but it is our history. Like it or not, it's something that should be experienced.
There's a lot of footage, a lot of care went into organizing it and the storage of the videos, because on one video, they showed the shoes, the amount of shoes, thousands upon thousands of shoes that they took off, and they cut their hair off. It's such inhumane ways of doing things that I can't get these images out of my mind. And so you have to go and experience it, because like I said, reading it in a book is completely different from seeing it on camera.
And near the end, you see the trains that lead to the extermination camps and the gassing of the Hebrew people. And you see that they were tricked into thinking, oh, they were going to another work camp, or they were going to be interrogated. And then they bring them in and they strip the bodies down, dust them down with this type of substance. And they said, we're just going to cleanse you. We're just going to have you shower. And that wasn't the case at all. Again, it's really mind-boggling, and it's emotionally very draining and difficult to take. And the tough thing about it, I think, for Shera and I was there's no hope. You don't see any hope, even in the aftermath, which there's a section after you go through all these very visceral things. In the aftermath, it showed the post-World War II era, and there's no real solution. The Jews still have nowhere to go. The war's over, Hitler's defeated. But their situation, they're not being exterminated anymore, but they don't have a positive future.
I was just glad I experienced it, and the day didn't really help, because it was raining and pretty somber, sad day. But I'm just glad I experienced it. And then right after, I think we heard a group of people saying they were going to go to the Lincoln Monument, which is, everything is in close proximity. So it's walking distance, maybe 5 or 10 minute walk. And the Lincoln Monument is open 24/7. So you can go at any time. And Bill and I decided from the Holocaust Museum, we're going to walk over to Lincoln Monument and check that out.
Yes, and wow, you've seen it on TV and you've seen things in books, but when you experience a memorial, it was much larger. That statue was much larger than I ever knew. And it's recessed. It's back a good ways from what you think. And of course, we got in there, we took pictures, and we were awed by the sheer size of it. But at one point, Shera and I turned around and we looked, and straight ahead, about 3/4 of a mile, is the monument, the Washington Monument. Yeah. And what do we see but this huge mall, this huge area? And we looked at one another, and it dawned on us, this is where all the major events that you see televised all your life happened right where we were standing.
And what I could think about was, how long did it take people to leave? They must have been stuck in traffic for hours.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It could fit thousands and thousands of people. Inaugurations, civil rights, anti-abortion, women's liberation, all these major movements, these huge congregations of people right there where we stood. That's where you see it. And you see the potential for tens of thousands of people. Yeah. There's enough room.
I would recommend, if you're ever going to an event there, just take the bus or the metro. Don't drive, don't park. You're going to be there for a while. One of my highlights or favorite parts of the trip was the National Museum of African American History and Culture. That's a big, beautiful building that you cannot miss. It's gorgeous. It's about 7 floors. It's actually one of the largest in the world, and it's 3 levels below and I think 4 up top.
Right, it was 7 levels, and wow, what a journey that was. And we recommend that you start at the bottom. You start there, and actually you go in, you go down a couple of floors, and then you wait in line to take an elevator that goes down much further. And as it goes down, it traces back history. There's a clock that goes back into the centuries. And it really, I kind of embarrassed to say I'm a little ignorant on the issue. I thought slavery began in the 1800s, before the Civil War. Gosh, it goes back to the 1400s. And we witnessed this. There are no pictures from that time, of course, but you see sketches of the drawings of the slaves from Africa being brought over in ships, and they are shackled together. The feet at one end, and the next person, the head's at that person's feet, and they are lined up like human cargo in these brutal, just primitive shackles. And that's how they were transported across the Atlantic Ocean.
Once you get off the elevator, just prepare yourself for an eye-opening journey into human suffering and brutal, inhumane conditions. I just couldn't understand why this needed to happen. There is more to what you read in the books in school or what you even learn out if you don't go to that museum.
Oh boy. And as we were going through these lower levels, you can't experience that reading a book or even watching a film. We were walking through this tunnel of despair.
Yeah.
And a level of human suffering that the people endured, not for years, not for decades, but for centuries. When these slaves came to the United States, and their children and their children, no outcome, no sunshine, no light at the end of the tunnel.
Once you go through that bottom level, you'll make your way up. But I mean, every floor is just a different type of suffering. And we got to the Emmett Till exhibit. That's one you don't want to miss. You walk in and you're not allowed to have your phone out, so you can't record or take any photos. But the moment you walk in, you hear his mother's heartbreaking story of the day she saw her son. And she had to look from his feet all the way up to his head because she couldn't start at the head. And then you walk around and you get to the coffin, this tiny coffin. This is just a boy. They did this to a little boy, 14 years old.
I recently was on a flight, and one of the options for films was the Emmett Till story, and I watched it. And having already been here, it had such an impact on me. I stood in front of that casket. I was there. And guys, when you hear Emmett Till's mother, you hear the actual recording from 1955. You hear her voice and her anguish and her wailing about what was done to her son by these redneck backward people. And this has been going on. I mean, we're now into modern times, but the brutality, the violence, and barbarism of the Ku Klux Klan, and these are citizens by day and they're terrorists by night, on people just like them who are trying to work, raise a family, make a living, who have emotions, who have feelings, who have honor, who have dignity, and all they want is equality. And to terrorize them by lynching them, burning down their homes, burning down their places of worship where they go to church. The inhumanity in modern times. We're not talking about centuries ago, we're talking about less than 100 years ago. In modern times, less than 70 years ago. Modern day society, this type of brutality is being done to their fellow man simply because of the color of their skin.
The seats that we sat in for the silent restaurant protests, and you sit, and it's supposed to give you the experience of what it was like to sit back in that time frame and protest silently. So as you're sitting there, they're spitting on you, they're blowing smoke in your face, they're hitting you, punching you, and you're just supposed to sit there quiet and not defend yourself and just cover your face because you're gonna get beat up essentially. And I looked to my left where Bill's sitting next to me, and it just dawned on me that our friendship would have never been tolerated at all. We wouldn't even be sitting next to each other.
Yes, and yet in the museum we sat right next to one another.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
How times have changed.
They have a replica of one of the train cars and the buses, and you could actually walk on board that and walk to the very back where the African Americans had to sit.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to sit anywhere else.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really struck me, and I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but for all of you listening to us, I have to say, I could have gone to the museum myself and would have gotten a lot out of it. But going with my friend Shera and seeing her reaction and seeing her emotions, and she was seeing mine, I looked over at my friend and said, this is her heritage. These are her grandparents and great-grandparents, and this is her lineage and her heritage that experienced all this not very long ago.
Yes.
And I had a brand new type of empathy and understanding and concern for my friend and African American people because of the history of persecution and just oppression that still goes on today to some extent. It still goes on.
Yeah.
And to see this and to remember myself growing up as a boy, seeing news footage and hearing the slanted media saying, violence and so forth. But you watch these peaceful protests by African Americans led by their leaders, peaceful protests wanting peaceful change. And whenever there's a gathering, you see the white police with the dogs, the billy clubs and nightsticks and the hoses, because people were having a peaceful sit-in and the white society couldn't tolerate it. People asking for same wages, same rights, sick days that their white counterparts had. They don't want violence. They simply want equality. And you say to yourself, what is all the fighting about? Why not? Why should, as reasonable as it can be, read the Constitution. All men are created equal.
Yeah.
Supposedly. And here you have African American people that fought in the war. Gave up their life or their limbs. And some who survived that returned from the war for the country they fought for, and yet they're not treated equally.
Yeah.
They still have to go to the back of the restaurant to get served, or have to use a separate water fountain or a separate toilet. And you just say, what is wrong with modern thinking man? Do they not to see the disconnect here? And as a Caucasian man, I'm saying, what was wrong with our society? It really made me think, because I'm with my friend and we're dear friends and we consider one another equals in every way. And what was with the thinking that I'm at a loss. I don't understand, guys, but what an eye-opener for both of us.
I was really happy to experience it with you. I went by myself last year when I was in DC, and there are two different experiences. It was an eye-opening adventure because we're standing there together, and it would have not been possible back then to ever stand together and do this together.
Yes, very, very educational for us. And we did the museum in 2 days.
Yes, recommended 2 days. It's a lot. The first day, when just the bottom floor, the 3 lower levels, that takes a day.
And you need that day from all that oppression that you witness and all that you see. And it's a slow evolution. And it's beginning on those levels, slowly over many, many years. But when you witness this and go through these lower floors and the day is over and you go home, it's a lot to process and digest. And you come out of there changed. You really do. So you need a day before you go back and see the second half.
It starts with the oppression, 1400s, and then it evolves.
It's slow, but you see the progress starting to take place. And for me, what I witnessed, it seemed to begin, and shortly after it came through other areas of society, it started to begin with athleticism, because we're such a sports-oriented country, the United States, and you see these rising stars, even in the World War II. Jesse Owens.
Here we are at the Jesse Owens statue and the representation of him. Shera, you want to talk about him a little bit?
Well, I read that he changed the ideologies of the Aryan race of Hitler. He was a second-class citizen and was not able to capitalize off his winnings or any of his wealth. So, great representation of determination and continue to be the person you are and take it forward.
1936 Olympics, 36. Hitler saluted him. Jesse Owens was our American superstar. But how disappointing when this American hero returned to his own country.
Penniless. He died penniless. He didn't get paid for anything that he did. And that is just unfathomable.
He was a gold medal winner, but he was a black man.
Yes.
He was a black man.
Wow.
So he comes back to his own country. He's not offered a coaching job, a consulting job. He doesn't come back a hero. In the history books he is because of his accomplishments. But as a human being, he's a black man. And so therefore, but and that was depressing to see that outcome for such an American hero. But as you look at other things, you see great athletes like Wilma Rudolph. You see Dr. J. You see Muhammad Ali, who brought world leaders together.
Yes.
And these other great, great athletes. And you read about Title IX, where through peaceful protest, they got their point made. And you look at these and modern day athletes like the Williams sisters, and you see the slow rise through athleticism. But what began with that athletic prominence was a voice.
Yes.
And such great responsible athletes to use the voice for positive change. If young men can look it up at Willie Mays or Hank Aaron because they can hit home runs, well, their voice can be heard.
Yes.
And that was an avenue for change. And then you see it, for me, we see it in the influence of music. And these great music, and let's face it, guys, African-American culture, their music resounded through the world. They influenced the world, not just the United States, but African-American music influenced all areas of the world in rhythms and musical culture. And you see these rising stars come out of that. Count Basie, Miles Davis, James Brown, these great leaders. Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, my God, world heroes. And then other areas of literacy, style, fashion.
We really did contribute a lot to fashion. I mean, hair color, sneakers, Jordan, just style matters. It really, really does. And it's a form of self-expression. And it is how we express ourselves throughout all of this pain and oppression.
Well, what's marvelous is you see finally the opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we go into this section, this exhibit called Style Matters. I said, oh, this is Shera's room. This is Shera's room. Self-expression, style, here we are. She's ready.
Museum, Style Matters, and she's dressed appropriately. And they talk about how important it was, Black athletes' charisma, style, and bringing their own sense of expression. This museum is so enlightening and illuminating of the struggles, of triumphs, and the perseverance, not only in athletics, but just all across the board. But here we are with Style Matters, Shera's room.
Here's my honesty, my work undressed.
Really, just what you're seeing is gradually as you go up the floors is the positive social change. The voice is not only being heard, it's being listened to, and change is taking place. Finally, African American people are reaching their stage in society, and they're given the opportunity to excel, and they do. They're given the opportunity to influence, and they do. Through art, through fashion, through hairstyles, through acting, through entertainment, the dancers, the poets, Maya Angelou, these just great leaders that come out. It's fabulous. And you just get this exhilaration. We did as we're going up these floors and seeing the achievement, tremendous achievement and triumph over odds. And guys, it's still going on. It's still occurring, but the huge strides have been made. We have more to go, but huge strides are being made, and it's exhilarating to see African American expression all over the world and the tremendous influence it has all over the world. And you say to yourself, why is it that these people were oppressed when they've got so much talent, so much ability, so much to offer, and yet they were being held down? And they fought and fought for peaceful change, and they got it.
I'm glad we went to that museum. It is beautiful from the outside and inside. And we had a wonderful experience from that museum. We actually went to the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial.
What a magnificent And we saw it at night. We didn't see it during the day, but I cannot see how it would be superior to see it during the day, because at night it's illuminated. And wow, the detail in the sculpture itself, we just were mesmerized by the detail of the Dr. King sculpture. It's massive, it's beautifully done. Wow, we just stood there. We were there quite a while.
We actually talked to, I think his name was Steve, a park ranger named Steve. Very informative. And as I was there taking photos and videos, he came up to me and asked, what do you think of the statue? And I said, well, it's a beautiful statue. It's gorgeous, And he goes, what do you think of the color? Didn't cross my mind, but it's beautiful color. And he says, well, he's been working there a long time, and most people have an issue with the color. And they think that it should have been black or dark brown. And I couldn't see it in that color. Especially at night, it just illuminates in the color that it is. And the color it is a beige, off-white. It has the stone, has like pink, it's granite, it has a little bit of pink, a little bit of sparkle. I mean, it's beautiful the way it is. And black or brown, it would have been beautiful too, but I never thought about it that way. And he was very informative. Bill and I spoke to him for about 30 minutes in 39-degree weather, by the way, and he gave us so much information on who built the statue, when it came out, especially when the president has to sign in order to have this done, and just so much information. So when you guys go, look for Steve, but he's going to tell you everything you need to know, and wonderful experience talking to Steve.
And we had just such an inspirational time at that monument. Dr. King, I mean, we can talk about it all day, but to sit in front of it and look at it and be inspired. And I think there was a particular goal in mind with the design and the position and the placing of the monument itself, because it seems to be, my take was that Dr. King was pointing toward the future, pointing toward the future. And you just get this sense with all the problems in this country, Dr. King had unfailing optimism. He had belief, he had hope for unity.
Finishing that trip with the Dr. Martin Luther King Memorial, it was wonderful, because we are that dream, we are the dream that Martin Luther King had, and it's beautiful to experience it together from two different cultures, two different backgrounds, two different ages. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. Wonderful trip.
Something we'll always remember.
We wouldn't have gone to DC if not for our books in the Library of Congress. So, we really want to take the time right now to thank you guys for all your support, and thank you for the continued support, because without you guys, we wouldn't have any of this. So thank you. And you can find our book in the Library of Congress. Go to the Library of Congress website and just type the book in, and it will pop right up. We will see you guys next Sunday, because we have a very special guest.
Look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks for tuning in.